Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Otaku Mike. Uh, and this is the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. I almost flubbed there for a minute and said Otakuology, which is my other podcast. But no, we are on Usagi Podjimbo today. Yes, we are. If you're new to the podcast, go back and check out my older episodes where I talk all about Usagi Yojimbo. We are in the middle of a story arc right now, a tiny one. We are in the middle of Blood Wings, and this is Blood Wings Part 2, the final part of this particular storyline. Yes, we are. If you don't remember what happens, go back, get a refresher, listen to the last episode. Shameless plug, just saying. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so on my Facebook page at Usagi Podjimbo or on my Instagram. It's not very active on my Instagram, but there is an Instagram for Usagi Podjimbo. I always forget about it. But you can pretty much get me on my Facebook page, Usagi Podjimbo, Usagi Yojimbo podcast. That's it right there. Yes, it is. Or you can email me at usagipod@gmail.com. Apparently, Usagi Podjimbo or Usagi podcast was already taken. Well, not Usagi Podjimbo. I just called it Usagi Pod at the time. I didn't really know what the official title of the podcast was going to be at that time. But without further ado, let's get into this. We are on Blood Wings Part 2. We start out where they're at a hidden cave where the ninja bats are at. They're called the Komori. I believe that's what they were called. And the Komori are these like ninja bats who are looking to get in good graces of Lord Hikiji because the Neko ninjas are ousted. They are no longer the ninjas for the Hikiji group or whatever they are, like Lord Hikiji. They're ousted. And they're trying to, or the bats ninjas are trying to steal this gold for Lord Hikiji to get in his good graces type of thing. And at the end of the last issue, they ended up capturing Usagi, and that's where we are. We see the Usagi being kicked around by these flying ninja bats, and they're like, "Why are you here, samurai? Who sent you? Was it Lord Hinori?" And you see Usagi's like, We're like, "Talk, or I'll carve out your spleen," one of the ninja bats says. And you see Usagi hit the ground. He's like, "Ugh." And they're like, "Talk, samurai. We know you want to talk because we don't want you to fall to your death." And we see Usagi is on this big, giant pillar inside the cave. It's really, really tall. I'm surprised Usagi was able to stay on the pillar. Just got to be honest about that part, And Usagi's like, okay, you win. We know your plan of attack. We know you're going to attack the gold shipment and steal the gold. We've already warned the mine itself, and the bats are like, "Liar, you're lying. You're trying to save the gold and the village. We caught you even before you reached the mine, so we know you're lying." And you see some bats off to the side, and they're like, "Do you really think he's lying? Do you think he's bluffing?" And they're like, "I don't know if he's bluffing or not. Who knows? We can't tell, but we gotta guessing on what information we've got from him and the villagers. We it doesn't hurt to be kind of cautious." And we see all the bats, they're gathering up, which this scene, I don't know if it was intended to be funny, but I thought it was really funny where they're all gathered up upside down discussing their plan in the opening of this cave. They're like upside down on the ceiling, obviously, because they're bats, and they're like, "Oh, how much do you think he knows? Do you think we got to kill him? Like what's exactly do you think he knows? He can't escape at this point because obviously he's bound and he can't escape, and he's on a big giant tower, so he can't escape." And then I guess the main bat is like, "We have to enact our plan. Let's go." And we see all the bats fly out, and we get this. I think it's a really funny scene. we see a bunch of the guards from the from the mine. They're protecting the gold and whatnot, and they're like, "Hurry up! We got to get the gold loaded up. These horses packed. We got to go." We get this scene with these two guards, and they're just talking about what's going on, and one of them happens to see something, and the other one's like, "No, there's nothing flying up in the air. That's nothing at all." You know. And as they're having this conversation, uh, we see them, going on about their trip. They're escorting the gold. They're talking about how tired they are. We got to stop. We've walked the entire country, and this one guard keeps talking about like this thing he keeps seeing up in the sky. And they're like, and the other one's like, "Oh no, I don't see anything." I think I saw it. They're like, "Are you kidding me, man? The captain's mad at us. And you want to start spreading around these fairy tales." He says. He's like, "No, I really, truly think something is following us." So we switch back to the caves that the ninjas are in. The bat ninjas are in. We switch back to that. We see flap, 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 flap. We see the bat ninja who was scouting the mines comes back, and he's like, they've encamped for the night, and everything's going as planned, apparently. And one of them asks, "Are you sure there's no tricks?" He's like, "Positive, there are no tricks." They're like, "Good, we don't need this samurai anymore. You stay and slay him, and the rest of us will leave." So the rest of them take off and go, leaving one lone bat samurai. Sorry, bat ninja. He's not a samurai. Bat ninja. And we see Usagi's trying to cut his ropes with a rock from behind, and to no avail. He ends up getting attacked by the bat, and the bat's like, "Ha ha ha ha! It's no use trying to avoid it, samurai. You and the village, your friends, are all gonna die." And he's like, "Ah!" And Usagi's like, breaks his ropes that are binding him. And I love this scene just because I've seen something kind of similar when I was watching the new Dungeons and Dragons movie. With Jarnathan, I believe his name was. But Usagi lunges and jumps and uses the bat ninja to kind of sort of glide down / fall somewhat gracefully, but not gracefully, I guess you could say. And the bat's like, "Hey, let go of." And then you see, and Usagi uses the bat to break his landing, and he's like, his wings slow down the fall, but not enough for him. His back must have snapped. It's a very, very little gruesome scene, but Usagi now wishes he had wings. So he could go, and it wouldn't take him so long to climb the rocks that he has to climb up to get out of the caves itself. And he's like, "Oh, it's good to breathe some fresh air," he says. He's like, "Oh, I see fire in the distance. Could that be the gold mine or the village?" He thinks to himself. "I've got to get there, before it's too late." And we see the two guards at the gold mine. They're talking like, "Birds freezing," and the other guard's like, "Oh, it's your fault. The captain posted us way out here as punishment for your stupid giant bird stories." And little do they know that it's not a giant bird, it's actually a giant bat. And they, unfortunately, get attacked. We see Usagi running through the woods, gasping for air, trying to get to the village. And he's like, "I've lost, I failed, I don't know what to do." And just so happens he actually does get to the village, and he sees Ando, and he's like, "Ando, rally the villagers. The Komori ninjas are going to attack us tonight." And he's like, "What? What are you talking about?" As Ando is eating his bowl of rice, he's like, "How many warriors is the mine sending us?" And Usagi's like, "We never even made it to the mine," he says. He's like, "What of my son? The son who never got a name?" He's dead. Sorry to tell you, Ando, but your son is dead. And the Ando gets enraged, and he starts to wake up the villagers. He's like, "Wake up! Wake up! We're in danger. We gotta wake up all these villagers. We gotta wake them up." You know, and they're like, "Oh, we transition from that. All the villagers are waking up. We see the bats, and they're like, we've captured the gold. You know, we got to regroup, leave no element that the village. You know, otherwise, you know, the gold we took from Lord Akiji, well, you know, maybe it'll be stolen. Who knows? You know, we got to hurry up, and we got to go kill all these people in the village. Apparently, you know, it's good hunting. They said, you know, and as the bats all fly off, and I love this scene where we see the bats all flying in the distance. We see all the villagers rallying themselves. We see Usagi in particular. Usagi has a bow and arrow. He does not have his swords. If you remember from the last issue, he ended up losing his swords. But we get this cool scene where we see Usagi with a bow and arrow just taking out bat ninjas left and right. It's pretty interesting. I didn't think of Usagi as an archer, but he's really good at doing archery, and he's hitting these bat ninjas pretty good. And we see the village elder Ando, and he's like, you know, rally around the samurai. You know, he's the best at what he does. And they're like, oh, look out, the house is burning, because the bats end up dropping like some hot coal or wood onto this particular house. Like, oh no, the house is on fire. And we get this cool scene. Well, it's not cool for the villagers, but they start to attack all the bats start to attack all the villagers, and we see one of the bats going after a young woman and her son. I'm guessing, and they're like, help, help, help. And we see they get an arrow, and all the villagers end up rallying to take out all these bats, which is really cool to see. Like one of them even like hits them with like a stick at it with like a rope and a stick, and it's like it's attached like another. I think it's maybe like a gardening tool, maybe, but it's like a piece of wood attached to a rope attached to a stick. That's what it is. And he ends up hitting one of the bats in the air, breaking his wings. He ends up thudding to the ground. We get this cool scene of one of the villagers. He ends up like picking up a rock. He's like, I'm gonna finish you. Little does he not finish him, because he gets slashed in the gut, which that would have been a cool scene to see. And we get all of the bats, and they're going after the rest of the villagers. One by one, they are getting taken down. Usagi wonders if that's the last of them. And one of the villagers says, yeah, look at the sky. The sky is clear, samurai. But no, it is not clear. One last bat remains going after Usagi. And then Ando steps in. He's like, look out. And he like busts the jaw of this one bat ninja. And like his teeth end up starting falling out. Like he like busts him good. Like he hits him so hard. And like, you know, he's like, he like starts hissing at him. He's like, you killed my son. You've ruined our lives, bat scum. You know, and then I guess the bat ninja, it's hard to say if he gets knocked out or they kill him, but he's like laying on the floor, and Ando says, you know, it's over, samurai. And Usagi ends up saying, yes, Ando, by banding together, we have vanquished all of these particular foes. Days later, we see Usagi and Ando at like a pyre, almost like a Viking pyre, almost. That's what I can basically the thing that they use to like burn Darth Vader's body at the end of Return of the Jedi. But we see them days later. Usagi saying, Ando, you know, your son died a hero. And Ando is like, thank you, Usagi. You helped my village. His death fills me with pride as well as sadness to know that, you know, he died protecting his village. You know, he basically sent him to his death, I'm going to say. You know, and like he's like, you know, I pray for your spirit continues to watch over us, my son, and watch over the village, he says. And, you know, we have much to thank you for, my friend. And they start talking, and Usagi is very grateful that Ando actually happened to find his Usagi's swords, and he gives him his swords back. And Ando actually asks Usagi, do you think the Komori ninjas will be back? Will they ever return? Usagi's like, no, I don't think they will end up returning. We Lord Horino, um, will take stronger precautions, with the future gold shipments. He says, and we end the comic with we've probably seen the last of them. I'm guessing is what Usagi says, and in the distance we see a foreboding, ominous flap, 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 and that is where Blood Wings ends. And oh man, reading this back to back was really good. It's definitely is one story, but it's such a fun little story to see. I love the new additions of the Bat Ninjas. Those guys are really cool because, I don't want to say the Neko Ninjas were overstaying their welcome as, like, quote, bad guys, but with the addition to the Bat Ninjas are really creepy and very much do give off like this villainous vibe. I like their look because they're like all black and they look like they're wearing like these like black, almost like geese almost, and they have like blades attached to their like the ends of their wings, and there's just a really interesting thing I think Stan Sakai honestly comes up with, a very off the wall, I would have to say, like very very good, like enemy for Usagi to fight, because Usagi kind of is at a disadvantage. First off, because he's on the ground and they're in the air, and they do have the advantage. But seeing Usagi adapt to his surroundings, what he does to get out of the situation he is in, uh, I'm curious to know if this is the first time Usagi has run into them. I'm guessing it is the first time, but I wonder if he like. But I wonder if he's like heard of them before. Who knows? To say the least. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where these guys show up again. Like what happens. Obviously, they're going to come back. But this is such a good two-parter. Highly recommend checking it out. I had a lot of fun with it. It was interesting to see like Usagi being a part of solving the problem, but he ended up helping the villagers, and the villagers ended up helping him more than I guess he even thought they would help him, because they definitely pulled their own weight, I would have to say. Um, but yeah, fucking like 5 star, 5 out of 5. This Bloodwing story was really a really cool introduction to like more expansive, overarching narrative, but like expanding on like the different characters within the world of Usagi. It was really, really well done to see. But yeah, that's where I'm going to end this episode. Thanks for listening. If you want to help the podcast, share the podcast, tell your friends, go leave a review. If you leave a review, I'll read it on the podcast. Just whatever you want to say. Let me know how I can improve the podcast. Let me know exactly how I can improve the podcast, because that would definitely help. I would love to hear your feedback. Let me know. But peace out, stay safe, and go read some Usagi Yojimbo.